Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Harder Shaft podcast. How's your shaft going? We've been getting more and more closer to summer, and hopefully everyone's getting in sort of like that hot, steamy weather. And you know what happens when it's hot and steamy? It makes you want to play with your shaft. I'm a bit cheeky today. And on today's show, Lawrence Akers is coming in, and we're going to do a bit of a recap on the movie Bros and sort of like a bit of a movie review. And I thought that's a bit of fun. So, Lawrence, how are you?
I'm good. I feel like I need a shower after that.
Oh,
intro.
come on. Look at this. I did this for you. Look at this.
Why, thank you. They're rock hard abs, literally.
They're Greek gods. But like, you know, who is that movie reviewer back in the 80s and 90s? Remember Michael something?
Oh, John Michael Howard.
John Michael Housen. Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about Bros. So I'm guessing you've seen Bros?
I have. I went to see it in the cinema last Saturday. And what was interesting was that while I obviously didn't have a clipboard asking people as they came in, I think in the cinema of about 20 people, I would say there probably wasn't one heterosexual male nor one female. It felt like it was entirely gay. Which, you know, clearly that's I guess not surprising given.
Well, I think it's going to be one of these movies where it becomes a bit of a cult movie after.
What was interesting was I you know, when they were doing they being Billy Eichner and Luke McFarlane were doing their PR for it in Australia. They appeared on the project, and it was interesting to see the hosts of that talking about having gone and seen it, because you had people like Peter Hellier, who is heterosexual. You had, what's their handsome gay host that was there?
Hamish McDonald.
Hamish McDonald, thank you. Who had seen it. And, you know, even Hamish...
He's my bro.
Well, even Hamish said that some of the questions that people like Peter Hellier, and I can't remember the radio jock that's on the show often as well.
You know which one.
You know the one.
It comes with my tongue.
Yes. They were all asking questions about, you know, how authentic or how real.
Well, you know, is that the reason why you think it was rated R? Because rated R, I mean, like, really, if you compare Trainwreck to that, Trainwreck with Amy, it's like it wasn't really that bad besides a little bit of, you know, really this bit of drug use.
You don't really see anything that I would see as being overly...
It's the themes, though. The themes.
The themes. Yeah, you know, I think I've seen other films that aren't as...
Yeah. I've tried to think, what are the themes? Okay, I want you to fuck me, or hey, do you want some ammo? Or all that stuff. I'm thinking, okay, is it really worth, you know, but it is the first movie, isn't it?
It is, but, you know, again, it feels weird that we're in this world that is progressing, that we can have a gay rom-com. And yet there's still this kind of restriction and censorship over it. And, you know, this is even a topic, I guess, that appears in the film itself. You know, there's that scene with Bobby, the character Bobby, talking to Aaron's parents and about the right time to educate children about, you know, gay history and gay sex. And, you know, I know you were saying before we started recording about how that scene... and even for me, there was a part that was a bit of a cringe. But
do you have a Bobby in your life?
Like, some people might say I am the Bobby.
No, you're not Bobby.
Oh no, look, I'm not a Bobby in the sense of being that explicit, but I am a Bobby in the sense that you know, perhaps sometimes I will get on my high horse and not know when to shut up.
Well, you know what Bobby reminded me of was the 90s and early 2000s when everyone sort of lived in that ghetto, like Commercial Road. And I remember, like, so the Bobby in my life, he won't go anywhere unless it's gay. Oh, we need to go here. And so that sort of, Bobby is so entrenched, and he's a writer, and so everything is very passionate, which I love, but he doesn't have a filter, does he?
You know what? As someone who moved to Commercial Road in my 20s when I came out, it was because I had found my tribe and I'd found where I belong. And because of that, there was perhaps more of a leaning towards wanting to do gay things because that was my tribe. So I kind of get that, and it's only kind of
I've got a but though. I've got a but.
I'm sure you have.
The scene in the movie was when Deborah Messing comes and they have that scene to me was so authentic because Bobby is sort of, he's not a modern gay. That's what I got anyway. Like, you know, everything is still, you know, he thinks he's modern because he knows all this history about the first, pharaohs that were gay lovers and all that. But he doesn't sort of, you know, he doesn't really spread himself out enough to have that sort of more street smart thing. And so when he dumps everything on her, I think that was really good. And I love the way that she said, "I'm just a character. I'm not."
It's interesting because, you know, you look at other recent gay shows, for want of a better term. Uncoupling comes to mind there. And
Fire Island, have you seen that one?
I haven't seen Fire Island. Oh, actually, yes, I have. Sorry, I have. Yes, Fire Island's great. I think you watch that. But in Uncoupling, we do have someone who, again, is a very traditional person who has, you know, quite, I guess would say, conservative beliefs and values. And this is neither good nor bad. This is just simply how that character presents. And that was because he'd been in a relationship for...
but that wasn't realistic, was it?
And, you know, had to come to the other end of that and be single and try to navigate what it's like to be, you know, freshly single and gay in...
But how did you, you know, but the thing that I like is that it wasn't about coming out and it wasn't about HIV, right? But in Uncoupling, of course, then, you know, he was like this dumb person that was talking about PrEP and all that. So I think if you sort of are in a group of friends, you would have heard the terms, you know what I mean? So he sort of played this dumb role, but I think for the public, if you watched it on Netflix, I think it was good because it makes people understand without the assumption, because, you know, people won't know.
Yeah, but you know what? Taylor Swift just released a new album. I'm not particularly a Taylor Swift fan, but everyone seems to be talking about it. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to listen or engage in it. Exactly. And it's a similar kind of thing, I guess, when you're in a relationship that you feel is stable and you're in a monogamous relationship and there's no need to necessarily concern yourself with what exists inside of that.
But don't you think in America that really...
dumb about it. It's like, I don't know if dumb's the right word for me.
Well, it's more the Bible Belt. It's those people that still think that what they're doing, kissing, touching, you know, that's probably a reason why they got the rated R. So let's go into what did you take away from the storyline without giving too much away? What was your takeaway? Especially think about that this is a positive sex health place. What did you take away from that?
Well, the first thing I will say, to put a frame around this, is that it is a rom-com. Yeah. So in terms of story,
I love rom-coms.
Let's not necessarily go too deep into the story because we kind of know how a rom-com is going to end. There's always going to be this kind of... well,
I asked you to talk about this more about the fact that it's an opportunity to sort of talk about some sexual things. You know, like there's an opportunity there, not to judge anyone, but just to look at something and go, okay, that's interesting. Let's sort of use it as a springboard.
What has been really interesting is, and coming back to the project and their reaction to it, was particularly how there seemed to be a lot more sex scenes that involved more than one person. That there was a lot of going on. And one of the questions that was asked...
Hello, do you watch Bold and the Beautiful? They're sleeping with everyone in that show. That's at 3:30 in the afternoon.
At the same time?
No, oh my God. Bold and the Beautiful, right, which my mum used to love. Everyone in that family has slept with everyone. There's incest. It's intense, and that's at 3:30 in the afternoon, and we have to cop that. Now, Bros didn't have any bits, like, you know, the Billy didn't take his, you know, you didn't see any ass or anything, which was surprising.
No. In fact, I watched an interview with the director the other day. He was saying how they had shot a scene that did have penis in it, but it ended up on the cutting room floor.
I think that's cool, don't you?
Because it had come in a place in the film where they had felt that that it was perhaps going to be used for comedic value, but in fact it was actually in a part of the film that proved to be not necessarily as comedic. It kind of had serious overtones.
Yeah, it would have been educational.
Including that penis in there, it probably would have been, breaking or watering down the message that was kind of at the time.
So let me ask you: do you have an Aaron in your life?
Do I have an Aaron in my life?
No, but do you know an Aaron?
Oh, right. Do I know one? Right, because I was about to say, are you asking me about my partner? Yeah. I do say I would know an Aaron in my life.
So, do you think you related more? Did you relate to any particular character, or did you relate to both of them?
Look, I probably related to Bobby more, which probably isn't a surprise to anyone who knows me. He's as a character,
I wouldn't have said that.
He's deeply insecure. He's smart. He knows what he knows, and he uses what he knows and that intelligence to give him that confidence that he needs. But there are also other areas where he is deeply vulnerable, and I think that sums up a vast majority of beings on this planet.
But I look at Bobby as someone that is insecure, but at the end of the day, he realizes, I believe, that he's actually got his act together.
I think
the journey that he was on made him realize that he's actually got a good heart and he's a good person, and he felt like there was always this feeling of not being like wanted by these guys, right?
I think at the end though there was a moment of surrender and acceptance.
Yeah,
because he was pushing away, not wanting to spoil it. Sorry, people, potential spoilers. Pushing away the relationship opportunity with Aaron. But then at some point he recognizes that it's okay to surrender to it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to accept, both of their limitations and to bring it together. But, it obviously ends beautifully that it's,
well, we'll see there's a part 2 and then we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens 3 years from now. But,
well, 3 months in their case, yeah.
Yeah. But I dated an Aaron, right? And it's actually quite exhausting because there is a desire and a glint in their eyes of wanting to have that love, but there's also the pull of being, it's the whole thing with the thing that I found the hardest was the denial of being with them. So you secret and you have to see them in secret, and if we did go out somewhere, there was no sort of showing or connection to it being more than anything. And there was even one point I never forget this. There was a point where we were out for lunch with a group of people, and rather than say, "Oh, look, you know what? I'm dating Joe," he palmed me off to one of his friends to have sex with him. You know what I mean? So it's this really weird gay energy, and so watching that. That was a long time ago, by the way. So watching that, I sort of felt like there's that theme still present, this fear of missing out, or that fear of everything's disposable
not
now.
Being equal.
Look, if these two guys want me to, do you want to come? It just seems so easy.
One of the recurring themes in this, and I think they even label this within the film, is being emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
And that detachment that happens. And I guess that's kind of what we see where we have, I don't want to bring the Velvet Rage into this.
No, but I was going to say, actually, listening to you, like, this applies to both straight men and gay men.
But in this instance also, that Aaron character, is utilizing his, good looks to be able to get that.
So's Billy. Like the scenes where he's on the app just swiping, and then I love it when they go, "Hey, what's up? What's up? Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up?" That was
scene was, I thought, hysterically funny.
Oh my gosh, yes, in block. So that happens. I think I'm not sure if I told you this before or I was speaking to someone else. That one of the epidemics that we're having at the moment with straight men is. There is a high percentage of people that are good looking, right? And they get their dream sex, Tinder, whatever. But then there's this whole sort of demographic that is being ignored. They don't get any swipes, they don't get any likes. So what happens is there's a breeding, and I hate that word, but there's a breeding of these guys that are doing now really bad things. So I'm not justifying some of the bad things.
Bad things mean?
Well, like they're doing things like, again, I don't want to sound like I'm assuming, but I was listening to a lecture, but it was like most of the guys that do the spiking of the drinks, most of the guys that do, lie on their profile with their photos, all of that it's not desperation. It's just we're creating a space for these people to feel not validated. And so they're just surviving.
I was about to say, this comes back to kind of what we were talking about before we hit record, being about that validation that's needed for people in order to feel that they have value and worth. And unfortunately, I think that this is a problem within the gay community. Is that
I think it's a problem anywhere.
I've described, your headless torso shot as being currency on those gay apps. If you don't have one, the question is why? There must be something wrong with you.
Well, I mean, you and I have spoken about this so many times. Like, I felt that there was a time in my life where I had currency, right? I had the body, I was young, and now I don't feel like I've changed, but, I've gone through some stuff and now all of that's gone, right? I'm not complaining, but it's just interesting to observe that and go, like, the only way that I could have maintained that currency is if I stayed in that scene, in that world. And so when I pulled away from that, it is really quite amazing how you think you have this connection of this, you called it a community, where I don't believe that any of that's real.
Oh, see,
because it's totally, when I stepped away, like when you start not observing and going, okay, who am I seeing? What am I doing? It really is, to me, it's just obvious that a whole group of people just vanish. Now that could be because I've worked, we both worked in the scene, but if it was real, those people would be in my life.
Yeah, I guess it depends what you define community as being. So,
well, before I got sick, I thought I had a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Like a lot, right?
There's a difference between friendships and community.
Sure, but that was my community. I used to see people all the time. I was quite social. I was quite, So when that goes, right, that is my community, because now my community is where I live.
Again, the same community as well. Like, I mean, I don't know if there are people who are listening perhaps outside of Melbourne. There's an annual event called the Midsummer Carnival. And for me on that day, that's where I get a true glimpse of community, because I look at the diversity of people, the diversity of services.
See, I don't see community like that.
That sort of thing. And for me, that's community. That's like, wow, look at how diverse we really are. And that excites me, because it's like, it's not just white, cis, male, gay, whatever. It's this beautiful cross-section of people. And some I'm going to get along with, some I'm not. Some do some really interesting, creative things. And to me, the community is it's hard to define, because we used to define it so much on the scene.
Well, I define it on day to day. So my community was living in Elwood and stepping out into my, I would see that diversity every day. So now, part of it's because I've, wanted to focus on being a therapist. Part of it's because I've been sick. Part of it's because I've moved to the suburbs. But, it's still about, there's still people that I maintain contact with, but there's a lot of people that, I felt that, you just sort of like that feeling of seeing people and, but the reality is that not everyone can be friends with everyone, can they?
No, exactly.
So that's, for me then, as a person that doesn't go out, right? Now, but the thing is, living in the suburbs now, I've sort of got a little bit of a gay community anyway. And I've got an Indian community, and I've got, so it is diverse, and it doesn't have to be about gay lifestyle. But there is still a lot of, you were saying earlier, there's still a lot of sort of, I don't know, is it judgment, or is it just people have their own choices of what they want? You know what I mean?
Well, it is judgment, and it is also people have their own choices. So let's bring it back to the topic at hand. Not everyone is going to like the film Bros.
Yeah.
And it could be for a couple of reasons. It could be because their sense of humor may not be aligned with the sense of humor that's within the film. It's not like comedy gold. I certainly laughed throughout it, and I found it entertaining. Is it the funniest film I've seen? No, probably not. And for some people, the humor just might really fall flat.
And I think you also have to be a real big Billy fan, because Billy's a bit manic.
Billy is manic, and Billy brings, Billy to his characters. Bobby is just a very thinly veiled version of Billy Eichner. But then for other people, they might not like the film because in some ways it triggers things that are really uncomfortable for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, in those instances, my request would be something like, well, perhaps consider what it is about that trigger.
I don't know, Lawrence. I call that ignorance, because I've watched The Secretary about a man who has I've watched The Slap. As a gay man, I've watched stuff and I love that. I learn, right? So I don't understand how that movie can be anything but just face value. So that's the interesting thing, is like, I think that's the thing that I loved about Billy, when he got really passionate about, that scene on the beach, and he's talking about, not believing in himself, and everyone told him no, no, no. I just love that, because I connect with that. It's like that drive. That's the why, right? That why that you keep going, right? So it's that I found that interesting. And his boyfriend, I think, is a typical example of a guy from the country who moves to the city. And, he's got the body, he's got the look, and it's easy. That's the thing. It's easy to be a gay man and have sex. It's easy to be any man and have sex.
You also discover through the course of the film that he wasn't living his purpose either.
Exactly, the chocolate.
But, despite how, I don't know if his real meaning and purpose was used kind of almost as comedy factor as well, given, the fact that it was something that might be seen as completely left of centre. But that, again, isn't uncommon, and again, I wasn't going to...
Yeah, I totally agree. Look at
something like the work of The Velvet Rage, which if people haven't read it and listening to this, please go and read it. It's a great book. Again, that book itself causes discussion and debate and controversy. I read it and thought it's pretty accurate. I know people that have read it and have felt that it's wildly biased. But then that's also going to be the same with this film, is that people are going to... There's going to be some people...
Well, the one thing about The Velvet Rage is that we don't have father figures, and then we meet a tribe, and then the tribe, in a way, right, I do think that you get older and you eventually start to cut the ties, but the reality is that the gay scene is very inviting. When but we've got to keep remembering only 10, 15% of, gay men go into that world. So there's other energies, and I think in time movies will come out. There's another movie coming out actually in December, and it's got the guy from The Big Bang Theory. What's his name? And it's he meets. It's a similar story, right? I'm not going to be telling too much away because it's in the trailer. So he meets this gorgeous guy, and he falls in love, and then what happens? The fucking gorgeous guy gets cancer. And it's one of those sad rom-coms. So, you know what I mean? But I think that, to me, that's probably a much more stronger movie that a lot of people will go to. A, because the guy from The Big Bang Theory is very well loved. And the other thing is, the Aaron character, right? I love him. I used to watch him in Brothers and Sisters with Sally Fields years ago. And I noticed that he really was quite a different character in this movie, because apparently he's tried so hard to get so many roles and they've said no. I think he could pass for straight.
Yeah. Look,
do you think?
Absolutely. But I think also there's a couple of things that are kind of coming up here that are worth noting. And again, coming back to that Velvet Rage, and we're talking about, for those that don't know the book, he talks about the various stages of coming out. And the middle stage is the compensation stage, where it's all about having the best body, the best boyfriend, the best sex, the best car, the best job, the best house, the best relationship, all that sort of thing. And I think aspects of that come into this particular film where, and for them, that's why they're emotionally unavailable, because it's really about having the best, but also perhaps not being self-aware around what that best is for them authentically or genuinely.
Yeah.
And, there's that touching on that authenticity with the chocolate shop and
yeah, but they also touch upon it when Bobby talks about, oh my God, this is our Harry met Sally moment.
Yeah,
which again is about commitment, and I thought that was really clever because it's basically a ripoff of that movie.
Yeah, but then the other thing that's worth noting is that, and this is again discussed within the film, where they talk about why is it that gay cinema always seems to be so tragic. We look back to some of the earlier gay cinema, things like Boys in the Band, where, it has so many classic one-liners in it. But at the same time, it's just tragic characters. And,
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Do you think people have watched? Do you think people have watched a lot of gay cinema? Well, that's what's the
imagine
commercial.
a lot of gay men have watched a lot of gay cinema.
Because, some gay cinema that I watch on Prime, it's like, it's not tragic.
But that might be more contemporary gay cinema.
Well, it's still gay cinema. It's like, it's not, I mean, like, the thing is that I just think that people probably want the drama. Like, some of the stories are a bit slow, like the love stories on there that aren't commercial, like the Universal Studios. But, there's some really, like, Jeffrey and the Mulhollands, all those movies are really beautiful.
Well, the reality is that a story without drama is barely a story.
Yeah.
Films and TV and soapies all need drama because that's what drives the narrative and what gets people hooked. My partner is obsessed with watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I can't stand it. But, I remember saying to him, why? And he said, well, it's nice to see that my life isn't as fucked as someone else's.
Yeah.
For him,
it's funny, isn't it? Like, it's funny because you're right. I mean, I said to you earlier that I had to turn the movie off, and I watched the rest of it. There's only about half an hour left, and I'm noticing that I'm really now sensitive to the drama.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as something gets dramatic, I can't watch it.
It's kind of ironic because my partner's TV habits tend to be either horror films, Say Yes to the Dress, or The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So if I'm sitting next to him trying to work, I have to figure out if the girl squealing is because she's about to be murdered or if she's found the perfect dress for the perfect day. It gets really confusing.
So can I, before we finish, can I ask you a question about, I do feel like I've stepped away from my gayness, right, and sort of living my pansexual being. But, do you think that the sex scenes and the depiction of that was accurate in the movie? Like, do you think that the whole thing with meeting someone and going for a foursome and, in the very early stages of their dating, do you think is that a New York thing or do you think that's a world thing?
I think it's a world thing.
See, I don't know anyone that would do that.
I think I don't know if many people go around publicising it. Like, I mean...
Yeah, true. Okay, that's a good point.
An intimate thing, and therefore...
But if you met someone, would you invite them to a threesome?
Maybe.
Because I remember once I went out for dinner with a guy and I said to him, I think, again, I've shared this story with you. I said, please, I'm trying something different. Do you mind if we don't have sex to get tonight? Hey, let's catch up on the weekend. And he goes, that's fantastic. And then, went home, went to sleep. And then the next day I had brunch with a friend. And my friend said, oh my God, look at the guy I had sex with last night. And it was my dinner date. So
he went for desserts.
It's interesting how, like, a lot of straight guys would say, oh my God, the gay world's so fast.
Like, I mean, there are so many different arguments as to why this happens.
Yeah.
And, the one I remember is, it's guys being guys.
What's access, I think?
It's access. It's guys being guys. It could be in some, there's obviously no one size fits all reason for everyone. That would be just...
Well, have you ever seen a girl do that?
Yes, and funnily enough,
I know, but all the time
he has for that, which is really not pleasant.
Yeah.
And this goes back to an inequality as well.
Well, I'll rephrase that. It's like, there's been moments where, you bring a friend into the clan or the group and then within 10 minutes, everyone's wanting to have sex with that new person, right? And I don't know if girls do that. I don't know if you bring a guy into a group and then every girl wants to have sex with him. Do they?
I don't know if it's like the secret handshake of girls that we may not be privy to. I think you generally assume that on average, no, it wouldn't happen.
But we're more vocal about that, aren't we?
We could be casting assumptions here.
No, it's not an assumption. It's more, I remember once going to, like years ago, you and I went to a young and gay campsite thing. And I remember at that campsite, I don't know if you were involved in any of this, but I remember I was sort of feeling you, and I remember it was this energy of like people just wanting to hook up and going, oh, this is what it's like when gay guys get together and the weekend away.
I was far too insecure at that point in time to tap into that energy.
Oh God, I was new meat. I felt like I
think I was down on the beach with Kira McGregor doing impersonations of Miss Piggy doing Madonna's "Justify My Love."
You were doing scarf dancing, weren't you?
Scarf dancing? No.
Yes. So to go back to the question, so you believe that the sexual energy and the sexual openness is quite a standard blueprint of what's going on now?
I think it is, in my personal opinion. And I'm also careful of because there's that label nowadays of being sex positive. And I think that label can often be misused as just being happy to have sex and being open about sex, whereas I don't think it's necessarily about that. But
well, you know, you brought the Velvet Rage up. It's really taking that statement and then also using the Velvet Rage as, you know, foundation of being accepting. You know, if you're doing it just to fill the void, like we know some people in our lives and friends and all that, but if you're doing it because, and you still have, it's all about balance, isn't it?
I agree. I don't want to take anyone's actions or behaviour in an isolated incident and make a meaning out of it. I think that would be really unfair to that person. I think if you saw repeated behaviour and repeated patterns, then that's going to be telling. But I think in moderation of anything, again, as long as it's not hurting anyone, as long as it's consensual, as long as there is a connection of fun and you know, exploration or whatever it is that you bring into that intimacy.
Yeah, honesty. I think honesty is important. As long as you're honest up front, I think they were really honest and love that. But if you really want to watch a 6-part series on twisted, deep relationships, it's called Other People. It's on Stan. Just take a deep breath before you watch it. Watch it in one sitting, and you'll have to have a week just to recover.
Right. You're really,
you know. So, well, I mean, that to me, you know, Bros was like light and very fluffy, but there's, you know, So thank you for that. I think we should do more movie reviews because I think it's fun to dissect the movie, but also get some.
I barely reviewed the movie and more so.
But I didn't want to review the movie. I just wanted to. I really just wanted to talk about the sexual content that is a blueprint of what's happening. You know, like for example. Sorry if I spoiled this for anyone, but when that guy goes with them for the threesome, I don't know. I must have blinked. How did that happen? When did that happen? Did you just follow them home? Yeah.
Steve that somehow got involved.
Oh, I'm coming. Yeah. How did he come
in there? Yeah. I don't know. You might need to write to Billy Eichner and ask him.
I've had multiple events like that.
I do know on a project he said that there always seems to be a Steve.
Yes.
Lots of things.
Yes, and then everyone's talking about Steve and trying to get rid of Steve. On that note, Bobby, lovely seeing you today. And
thanks, Sarah.
Until next time, keep playing with your shaft. So everybody, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We're now on every podcast platform. Look at Bobby and Aaron. Until next time, everybody, again, our motto, keep playing with your shaft. Bye.